On today's edition of the WealthKeel Freestyle, we walk through what items you should consider when having or adopting a child. I consider myself a decent resource for this with two crazy little ones running around. Technically one is not even crawling yet, but with one crazy 2-year-old running around and one soon to be crawling baby. So we wanted to walk through some important topics here, whether it's the cost of having a baby, updated insurance, childcare, education costs. We're going to walk through all that next coming up on this WealthKeel Freestyle. So stay tuned. All right, first topic is cost. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but kids can be a little bit expensive. They're worth it in every single format, I promise. Two things we're going to cover. First is just understanding the actual cost of having or adopting a child. And we can keep this pretty simple. The average cost that we found just from doing more general research, not in particular to our situation, it's about $11,000 to have a baby. To adopt a baby, it's about $43,000. If you get into the surrogate side of things, you could easily push into 6 figures. So just understanding the cost of having a baby is really important. When you pick your health insurance plan for whether it's the current year or next year, they essentially use general documents now for a lot of those insurance quotes. And if you scroll down to like page 6 or 7, it'll show different examples. And one of the examples is literally, I believe her name is always Peggy. It says Peggy's having a baby, and it shows you what they expect your cost to be. Scroll down to that if you're planning on having a child and see what it's going to cost. Yes, you're always going to have well, I shouldn't say yes, you're always going to have it. You could have a deductible, which is an important number to know, but also keep in mind there is a high probability in the year of you having a child, you will hit your max out of pocket. So don't just look at the deductible, look at the max out of pocket as well. So that's really important. The next one up is just the ongoing cost of having a child. So we did the math for having our firstborn, Riker, and when we did the entire first year of him being alive, it was just shy of $28,000. So year one's a little bit expensive. You're buying nursery, everything's brand new, and he was our first child, so everything was brand new. You don't know what to do. So we spent about $28,000 in that first year. The average cost, they say, to raise a child from 0 to 18 in that span is about $234,000. So again, it's not, they're well worth it, but they're not inexpensive. So just understand the cost of whether it's having the baby initially, which we covered there at the start, but even just the ongoing cost of having a child. Those are really important numbers to keep in mind. Okay, I can probably combine the next 3 sections. The first one is going to be the emergency fund. So if you can, again, if we're pre-planning before you've even started to try to have a child, or if you already got the good news that you're pregnant, or maybe you have a surrogate in place, or you matched to adopt, starting to build up that emergency fund is a great idea. Anytime you're going towards a large life transition, having a child would be a large life transition. Having extra cash on hand will never hurt, I promise. And if there's too much cash at the end of it, yes, you can go ahead and get that invested or keep some money in the emergency fund. But the first goal, aside from the cost, is try to build up some extra wiggle room, build up some extra cash in the form of an emergency fund or a rainy day fund, whatever the heck you want to call it, that's fine. And again, this would really be in addition to some of those costs that we just covered. We're now just trying to build up some extra cash to plan ahead. No matter what situation, having an emergency fund is just a good practice to have from a financial planning foundation. I noted I might combine 3 last time. I'm actually going to combine these 2. I think these 2 make more sense to be combined. So just thinking again in advance of cost. One of the biggest costs you will have from a child perspective early on is just the cost of care. Whether they're going to a preschool, whether you need to have a nanny, whether you have an au pair, whatever the example would be, from just the actual care perspective, not even getting into, I said preschool, but really kind of thinking even before preschool times. Is it daycare? Is it having a nanny? Is it having an au pair? Next we'll hit the schooling side of things, but just understanding those costs, doing some research ahead of time, maybe even doing some interviews ahead of time, good practices to start to build in for just the actual cost of your baby into that toddler phase before schooling actually really fires up. Next up is education costs. So now we can bring in preschool. So whether it's preschool or just any kindergarten care or private school, you need to start doing some research there. For example, I'll use us here in Philadelphia. Philadelphia has a public school system that is not the best yet. They have been making strides to improve it. But for us, we have to look at a lot of things. We have to look at the public schools. We have to look at charter schools, which is something I never heard about before we got to the city. And then obviously you come back and you look at the private schools too. But understanding the K through 12 cost, and even pre-K, if you need to include that in there, starting to understand those costs. Now, you really don't have to worry about any of the crazy stuff until about 5 years into it, from really that kindergarten phase. But there is some preschool, some pre-K that is important to understand. Education, we even get post-grad then. We start going through the college side of things. This is stuff that you don't have to plan for now. You don't have to be super precise on knowing what college your kid's going to go to and how much you're going to fund. So don't stress yourself out with all that. You got a lot of moving parts right now. But just again, starting to put it in your wheelhouse, understanding, these are some large costs that could come up in the future. How do you want to fund them? Again, going back to the other topics we talked on before in a WealthKeel Freestyle and just getting married, making sure you and your spouse or your significant other are on the same page for education goals. Again, whether it's K through 12 or even for college planning. So that's a big part of preparing to welcome your newest addition to the family. Last but not least is insurance planning. So this has a lot of moving parts to it, because it's not just a basic, hey, we need life insurance, we need disability insurance. Bring it the whole way back to health insurance, making sure you have good health insurance pre-baby and post-baby. So health insurance, life insurance, you just brought a human into the world. Heaven forbid anything would ever happen to you. Do you have enough life insurance, whether it's through your employer or a term life insurance policy in place? If you wake up and you can't go to work for a long extended period of time, how do you provide for your child and put food on the table? Just thinking through the insurance side of things. Again, I think the big three are going to be health insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, but there's a lot of moving parts that come with insurance. But just keep in mind that you definitely want to do an insurance inventory as you get ready to welcome the newest addition to the family. And this is another post where we will include our workflows. So it'll be a nice checklist walking through different topics, understanding all the moving parts. We'll also include a link to the blog post I wrote that really is still one of our best blog posts, I think, just because the level of detail and nerdiness that I put into it on when our first son Riker was born. But we'll include a link to that as well, so you can see all the cost, and we even provide some good research on there on strollers and car seats and things like that. So that'll all be in the post. Again, we just wanted to walk through some ideas and things that you should be considering as you prepare to welcome the newest addition to the family, whether you're having a child, whether you're adopting a child, whether you're going through surrogacy, just giving you some things to keep in mind. So we hope you enjoyed this edition of the WealthKeel Freestyle. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next video.